Greetings everyone and welcome to another edition of In Another League, a series where I chronicle my return to racing via the two series that I had announced beforehand. Now, if you've watched the last video, you'll know that one of those series and both of the races ended like this. However, the third race of that weekend ended much better, especially considering how lap 1 was, and I ended up taking 5th. At the time, I was unclassified and didn't really have a classification in Pro or in AM. This time, however, I've been classified AM. And it's only been this series, as over a week with 3 attempts, everyone would end up qualifying for that series Spa 400. And so, this was how my weekend would turn out. And so, here we were. Whereas the rating was 9th overall, but 2nd in AM. All-start check as usual, and no incidents with McLaren, thankfully. Or at least not on the start. As this time around, the start was pretty good. Off the line, no collisions, although there was the Pro Mercedes right behind me there, which is another thing. The first time I was not the only Mercedes on track this time around. In fact, qualified in front of some Pro Mercedes. I was only one of 2 cars to keep an eye on, the other being, well, my rival and the pole sitter. Unfortunately, however, things would not start off great, as under braking I wasn't exactly spectacular, and I ended up running into the pole sitter there, which allowed the other Mercedes to get by. So, not exactly one of my better starts of a race there, but I was still going, and I could still keep things on track. Of course, however, my Pro-Am rival wasn't exactly having an easier time, getting in a bit of trouble there, and later on in the lap would end up having a bit of a run-in with one of the McLarens, unfortunately. As things got a bit itchy and orgy, and maybe there might have been a connection issue involved. Either way, the car was around, and unfortunately for the car that was around, another one of these happened. So, lap 1, a bit of a crazy thing. Lap 2, of course, I would be having this little bit of an incident here, as the lag from this particular McLaren was not exactly spectacular to be around, and would be a constant issue for me at least. Not sure if anybody else had it, but so we're a bit things settled down on my end, although I would still be battling this 94 for a position there. The next lap on the other hand, though, I was not expecting such a break for him to do, so I had to dodge to the side there, and of course that went off, and that meant the Corvette behind me would end up taking position from me, and he would be the one battling the car. So, other than those little incidents there, that was pretty much all that was happening. Now, of course, there would be when Pro Audi that was up there would end up having this little moment here, and the game's flawless design resets him back on track. And this reset gives me another position there, and admittedly one that kind of confused me at the time, not really realizing what on earth happened, but that was that. So, other than that, things got a bit peaceful on my end. Quite a few laps there, doing those under the night time. Wouldn't be till around the lap 18 and lap 19 mark where things would get interesting. My rival in AM, Hotshot here, the one who absolutely has been an interesting one to keep an eye on, would make his stop. Now the next lap, I would end up making mine, being able to stretch it to lap 19. The Pro Mercedes, on the other hand, would end up stretching it just a little bit further to lap 20. So, Meanwhile, things were serene on my end. On the other end, our good old buddy Anam here flashed the lights perhaps a little too much on one of the left cars there, and unsure if lag or so, but it looked like that was not exactly appreciated. Or so I'm guessing there. Either way, that was definitely a bit of a moment for him. Anyhow, for a lot of the race there, pretty calming there. And even as the sun rose and the darkness went away, still no rain. Still none. Pretty much everybody kind of more or less perplexed on why that was happening. That is, until lap 33, where the clouds were looking just a little bit more suspicious. And my rivals behind me were kind of smart enough to realize something was about to happen. So they pitted in. I, on the other hand, was under the impression that I could just run some laps out there. I've run one race once so many times. I know how the rain works. Unfortunately, not so much. Not at Spa, anyway. Because lap 35, I was caught out by it. So, after that spectacular incident there, spun around even further by another car, I'd have to limp my way back to the pits and get on those wet tires. This in turn would lose me the lead in the AM category back to Hotshot, our AM rival here. However, I had a bit of an idea as I started seeing the dry line laps later. So, lap 39, I decided, hey, I'll take a punt on this and try to get on some drier tires to try to get an advantage. It worked for a little bit until he also wised up to that and also pitted, so it didn't really mean much. However, many laps later, the rain would come right back out, and so I would have to go back in, as would he. But then on lap 51, once again, the rain was starting to ease up. And while it may have been too early for some others, I decided to come right back in, put on some mediums, see if I could chase down the Pro Mercedes and that AM leader. And it was an interesting one because up front, Hotshot was still staying on his wets, even on a track that was increasingly drying. And, of course, the Pro Mercedes was staying on intermediates. Keep an eye out on that. That is quite the Mad Lad strategy. Now, eventually, lap 54, of course, the Ram rival pretty much would not be able to completely rip that. So, he would come in and get on the mediums himself. And this was interesting because he would then be fighting with the Pro Mercedes for a bit. And things that had gotten by him. But those fresh mediums were starting to show just how much better they were. And so, back right around Hotshot went. And he held that amp lead and overall position over the Pro Mercedes there. And it seemed like an AM win was pretty much all his. But then came lap 57, however. And instead, well, he would end up losing the car. And then the Pro Mercedes got by. And then later on in that lap, this would be by far one of the most significant incidents, as he would lose control, go right off the road, and spin right out. As if things weren't bad, it was now his turn to have one of these. So, just like that, out of my view, the AM lead fell right back into my lap. And so all that was left for me to do was just keep it on the road and not have any more incidents, issues, or anything. something that Hotshot could have done, or at least was trying to do, and trying to chase back down. Well, this happened. So, yeah, any chance for getting position was completely wiped away right there. And meanwhile, the absolute mad lad in the Pro Mercedes ended up making the strategy work somehow. He pulled it off and crosses the line in his position there. And meanwhile, I was there with an AM class victory. So how about that? 2 races, 1 ends in the top 5 and 1 ends in a class victory. And that's the end to another spectacular highlight. With this one, this video was a little tricky to do, had some tricky stuff going on, had to multitask a lot of things, but hey, got it done, just like with the race finish itself. And if you guys enjoyed this video, then give this a like, and if you want to see more, then do subscribe. But anyway, that's it, and I will see you guys in the next video.